stop doing this. We need more women in esports and we need more women into this. No, we don't. We need skilled players that deserve a spot. And if that person is a
Alex,
girl,
thank you for the
then
follow.
fuck it. Absolutely we do, right? But the blanket statement that we need more girls on the basis that they are girls is stupid. When you are being overly progressive,
The chat.
and you're forcing women into stuff on the basis they're women, not because they are good, it causes the exact opposite of what you're trying to achieve. When you put the people that deserve
this is interesting.
in the place they deserve to, and they're now accepted for the right reasons, not some bullshit.
Hi,
"More
Kenny."
girls, more." Yo, shut up, bitch. Man, so tired of this shit. Fucking so annoying. People need to stop doing this. We need.
Oh man, this is interesting. Normally, XQC does have some good takes. I don't think this is one of them. I guess in this video, he was like, XQC says that we don't need more women in esports, saying that it's too progressive, that it's a skill issue, and that he just wants to see good players. And if they're women, so be it. But if the better players happen to be male, then we don't need to make any moves or any changes to assist women and like make it a more inclusive space for them in esports. I think this is a whole L9 take, and it's coming from somebody who just is a little bit too ignorant to see the other side. A lot of people also have the same thought as well. A lot of people also say like, oh, we would love women in esports as long as they're good. Like, it's a skill issue, and just if women were good, we would be fine with seeing them in pro esports. But if they're not, then we don't want to see them. But you're not recognizing the systematic issues as to why typically in most esports, men are the pro players, not women. There's a lot of reasons that go into it besides just skill diff. Again, this has been talked about many times by many women, but it seems like a lot of people just gloss over it. But from a young age, if you are male, you are conditioned to play video games. You are encouraged to play video games. People would buy you a console when you're like 5 and be like, yo, play on this brand new Xbox, here you go. But if you're a girl and you try playing video games, you get socially discouraged from doing so. People will discourage you by saying, like, your parents would even be like, oh, you're a girl, like, you shouldn't play video games. That's a boy thing to do. Come play with these Barbie dolls instead. You, like, from a young age are discouraged to play video games if you're a woman, generally speaking. I'm obviously not going to speak on everyone's experience, but that most of the time is what happens. Whereas if you are a male, you are gifted these games. You are bought games. They're like, what do you want for your birthday? A PS4, a DS? Like, that's at least what, or like a PS2, I guess. That's when that was like my age, right? So if you talk to women, most women started playing games very late. I played my first game, League of Legends, like my first esports games, let me put it that way. My first esports game when I was 16 years old, it was League. My brother started when he was 10. I have a twin brother, by the way. And again, it's not even that I was like necessarily disinterested, also socially, right? Like socially back then, if you were a girl that played games, you were considered a loser. But if you were a dude that played games, like a lot of your friends also gamed too. But none of my friends gamed because most of my friends were women, like girls back then, right? And none of them played video games. So therefore I also did not have friends to encourage me to play games. So if you think of it from the beginning, right? Most men started playing video games way earlier than women did. So like my twin brother has 6 years of League of Legends experience on me because he started playing it like season 1. I started playing season 6, right? So obviously he would end up being better than I would be because he had so much longer of time to play games than I did. So the argument that it's a skill diff completely ignores the systematic reasons as to why women typically don't perform as well as men in esports. You're completely overlooking this like systematic issue. I can make the same comparison about race. I can make the same comparison, right? This is like a thing that people always say about race too. They're like, and I don't want to speak too much about this because I can't speak from the experience of somebody who is black because I am not, I am Asian, right? I've taken classes on history of African-American individuals in America and learned about the systematic oppression they have faced. They have, but they have faced, right? Like the common narrative is, oh, if you just work harder, then you can become successful like all these other white people if you're black. But people fail to realize that a lot of black people live in the inner city. Why is that? Because white people drove them away from suburbs. Well, then you could argue, oh, why can't they just buy a home in the suburbs? The realtors that sell homes in the suburbs are white. So how can, like, the realtors obviously would be biased towards selling homes to people that look like them. So black people would struggle to buy homes in suburbs, which, like, schools are distributed based on neighborhoods, right? So the better schools are always in suburbs because like state-wise, like systematically, they give better resources to schools that are predominantly white in the suburbs. The inner city schools are always underfunded. Like the books are like 20 years old, right? And it's always coincidentally the neighborhoods that are predominantly black that has like the shitty schools. So then again, like people always make the argument, oh, but if you just worked hard, if you're black and you just worked hard, then you can be as successful as us white people. I'm like a little bit white, but like majority Asian, right? But again, you're not acknowledging the fact that from birth, they're already at a disadvantage because what? Like education sets you ahead, but their education sucks because they were born in the inner city. And why is that? Because of the whole suburb thing that like, you know, they're being driven out of the suburbs, driven into the inner cities, and inner city schools don't have funding. Now they grow up with now they grow up in a school system that is underfunded. Now academically, they're already going to be at a disadvantage because their schools weren't the same. So again, like it's like the same thing where they're like, oh, it's just a skill diff. They're just not smart enough. They're just not, they like black people just haven't worked hard enough to get to where white people are. And you're ignoring the systematic reasons as to why this is the case. And then they pull the model minority card. I hate that because they're like, look at these Asian people. Like Asian people are always successful. Model minority. Again, there's a lot of things that you don't realize about that too. Asian people immigrated to the US during the time when you could only immigrate if you were skilled. That the US would only accept skilled laborers into the US. That whole model minority thing sucks. Like in the US, a large population of Asians are highly skilled because only the highly skilled Asian people could immigrate. The US would not allow you if you were not highly skilled, if you're not a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, whatever. The US would not allow you to immigrate. That predominantly selects for higher skilled individuals. Whereas like black individuals are brought over like for slavery, okay? Like they were enslaved individuals brought into the US and then like eventually slavery was abolished, right? But then now you have all these individuals that have nothing. They're not even considered a human being in society. How can they even like get a job to support themselves? There's all this discrimination. There's all these systematic barriers that prevent black individuals from succeeding in the US. And you can't just narrow it down to skill diff, right? That's not how that goes. You're actually ignorant if you don't look a little bit deeper into realizing why this is the case. This does tie into esports too, because the same narrative goes, oh, it's just a skill diff as to why like women are not as good in esports as men. Is it a skill diff or is it systematic issues that you don't want to address? Because then you're gonna have to acknowledge the fact that you're in a place of privilege and people don't like acknowledging that they are privileged. But why, right? Like, it doesn't hurt you to acknowledge that you were dealt a better hand in life. It doesn't hurt you to acknowledge that, hey, I am in a better position in life than these other people because I was given things. And once you acknowledge that you were given things that put you in this position, then you become more empathetic towards other people. And you can then also use your privilege to help other people who are underprivileged. Anyways, I don't agree with XQC's argument at all. I can kind of see it where it's like, oh, you know, you want to watch entertaining esports between highly skilled people. Sure, but you should still have infrastructure that would lift up people that are less privileged than you are. And it's dumb to not acknowledge that.